And welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Geek Centurions. It's me, your boy, La.
It's me, Joe.
And we're here to talk about something that came up in our last episode, if you watched our Matrix review, which we talked about the use of nostalgia in media. And essentially that gave me to the realization, man, that could be a really interesting topic to have. And I would like to have more people on, but really, I think since the conversation started with movies, I think the best person to talk to about movies, because that's where you see it most often with nostalgia is in films, especially with like we mentioned, Star Wars, Creed, even Spider-Man, and this Matrix one, even to an extent. And like that's when I'm like, okay, let's bring in the movie guy, because I feel like that's where most of the people who feel a little disdain for the use of nostalgia is right now. And you, Joey, you as the film guy, you kind of know more about this than I.
I mean, yeah, it's sort of it's kind of a trend.
Yeah, and we're not the first ones to talk about this.
No. I mean, it's been like I feel like it's been sort of a thing for like
at least since Force Awakens.
I mean, I think that's when people started to really sort of like clue onto it, but like just the idea of it's sort of
nostalgia
like,
baiting.
Yeah, and like Hollywood being sort of out of ideas is what I feel like to say, because it's like, oh, it's all just sequels and reboots and remakes and all that stuff, and you could sort of tie that into like nostalgia, because it's like, hey, I mean,
it worked 10 years ago.
Yeah, people remember this. It'll make money. Yeah, and that's sort of I guess sort of that whole, I guess, monetary reason why there's a lot of like I guess nostalgia baiting, I guess, if you would call it, in recent years, because people who grew up in the 80s and stuff, making something from their childhood, that's gonna get butts into seats. I mean, that's why they did like those live action G.I. Joe movies, where they made like another live action Ninja Turtles movie and stuff, because a part of that is sort of just like, hey, this is a brand, and we could maybe and the kids who grew up on this are now adults with their own families and stuff, so hey, maybe we can get in this money.
And it helps that we'll use G.I. Joe and Ninja Turtles as an example, because they're still doing stuff with those properties to this day. Even though it doesn't have to be film wise, it's always been cartoons. Like you and I grew up with like 2 to maybe 3 iterations of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on TV.
Yeah, and it's just seeing the, I guess, I don't remember watching the live action Turtles movie that was not directed by Michael Bay, but produced, I believe.
The second one was.
Yes. It was a whole thing at the time, right?
Yeah. It's one of those things where I really understand why people don't like it, because it's so like real easy to use. It's just really easily to manipulate us and like, oh, you remember that from your childhood and stuff. Remember how those the times were? And granted, I think it's just natural for us to be nostalgic, because it's been now like what 10 years since Shrek came out, and goddamn, are people nostalgic for Shrek?
I mean, 20 years. The first Shrek movie came out in 2001, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 20 years ago. That's that. For a lot of people of our demographic, Shrek is their childhood and stuff.
Yeah, there's a reason why we all remember the "Somebody once told me the world was." Oh, yeah, I'm not gonna sing the whole thing because I don't have a singing voice.
I don't know how copyright works anymore. Yeah. I don't know if singing a song can get us copyright struck, but as much as like there's that whole meme about Smash Mouth being like, we're not just known for making songs for Shrek, guys, and it's like, yeah, but like you did a lot of it though.
You only had the one song, but it's like the one we all know you for.
It's like, we're not a one-hit wonder. for Shrek, and it's like, I mean, you kind of are though. I'm just
For our demographic, you are.
yeah,
But
but
I'm sorry,
I mean,
Smash Mouth.
I'm not sorry. I don't care about them. I
Jesus, go first.
what?
Throw one, don't
No,
you?
I don't get. I don't know who they are. I don't care. Uh, but yeah, no,
I
it's
only know them for that one song.
yeah, exactly, and maybe like yeah, that's
Maybe
right.
one or two.
Yeah, but you know, there's the whole talks. I think I remember hearing of either them making either another Shrek movie, Shrek 5, or hell, just like rebooting the series, which was
Oh
just
God, please don't.
yeah, it's kind of it would be kind of weird for something like that to happen. But regardless, you know, it's
Well,
just,
like just talking about Shrek in general, it's like that was like a special kind of movie because it was basically a big middle finger to Disney, especially for the first one. I mean,
yeah, like if you look into like the behind the scenes for Shrek and like the whole in DreamWorks itself, yeah, you can kind of you get that feel and vibe that they're just making fun of like Disney and stuff. And I mean, I guess you, I mean, it's always I guess topical to make fun of Disney because they're always such a big media influence.
mm-hmm.
But it probably won't have as much of an impact as it did back in like you know the early aughts because you know Disney, you know it was Disney sort of like had like the brand of being like what like Disney princess movies, you know all that stuff.
Now they're just a huge ass empire.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of things you could do with Disney, I guess, in critique, but like it is a
They're not just known for the princessy stuff now.
yeah, you can't like I don't know. It's like it would be hard to like pull off Shrek stuff, Shrek's level of humor of critique on Disney.
Yeah,
Especially since I feel like Disney and DreamWorks don't have much of a hostile relationship. I guess I don't know. I don't follow necessarily any sort of that sort of drama, if there even is any more drama between them anymore. But speaking of Disney and princess movies, I mean,
oh no, yeah, they're going hard with those live action ones.
the live action remakes, which I mean, it's the same thing, right? It's they remake they do live action remakes of these old Disney films from the late 80s, early 90s, the Disney Renaissance films and stuff, and other movies. To like, because Disney knows, like, hey, people grew up with Disney films, and if we make a new, like, remake or version of that film, then clearly those people that grew up on those films who are now adults who have their own families are going to take their kids to watch this, and, it's a never-ending cycle. The only issue is that a lot of the times, a good chunk of the live-action remakes don't really... they're not really that. They don't do much to change what the movie is.
They don't really focus on what made it so good and how they can like add on to it, but rather they just like try to find the thing that people didn't like and just try to make that bit better, but it feels kind of forced.
Yeah, I think one of the clear examples is like Beauty and the Beast,
mm-hmm.
and they sort of lean into hard about making Belle a more feminist than she already was in the first movie. Because to be fair, she was already pretty feminist in the first movie.
Yeah, that was very distracting. Even when I was watching that movie, it's like, why are you teaching these little girls how to read? I'm like, where did this come from?
Yeah, it's like. Okay, this is like a little weird. No one cared that Belle was like, instead of like just being a regular girl in the village, she's just like, I like to read books and stuff, and it's like, that's weird.
Yeah, that was just the whole point of that moment. Like the whole thing about the intro to Belle's song, the song was basically like, Belle's weird.
Yeah.
She likes to read.
And she wants adventure in the great wide unknown or whatever.
Yeah. She just can't be a normal girl. And it's just it's not, that didn't make her like, yeah, there's some feminist undertones and I'm thankful for that. but it's like it wasn't as like as it is in the live action movie. Even with Beast himself, like they try to make him not as mean.
Uh, yeah, like I think they try to lean into. I guess there's a common critique I would put in air quotes because it's not really a critique; it's more of
Yeah.
a joke. That's like, oh, Bill has Stockholm syndrome, but for the Beast, and that's why she falls in love with him. And it's like you don't. You use the word Stockholm syndrome, but I don't think you know what that means because it's clearly just like people misremembering. Like Belle chooses
To stay.
to stay with the Beast because he's gonna kill her dad. That's the choice.
Well,
The Beast doesn't kidnap her.
Yeah.
In order for Belle's dad to be free, he's like, I'll trade myself for you. And it's clearly not Stockholm syndrome because, not to get into the whole,
Origins of Stockholm syndrome.
yeah, it's more of like a weird like hostage situation kind of thing over the course of like weeks.
But she's not really a hostage.
No, because at a certain point she just straight up just like leaves at one point because she's like, I can't handle being here anymore. I'm just gonna leave.
Yeah. He
Because
doesn't.
that's not what a Stockholm. That's not what someone suffering from Stockholm syndrome would do.
Mhm.
They would be, I don't know. It's just it's
And she comes back of her own choice.
yeah, like it's clearly like a joke, but people on the internet took it a bit to be like, oh, this is like clearly a critique Disney supporting Stockholm syndrome or whatever, and it's like Disney a bit, it's like
We don't want to ruffle any feathers.
yeah. And I guess a lot of the Disney live action films have these sort of weird problems. Friggin' Aladdin,
Oh yeah, that was a weird moment too.
where like
Which it was weird because like for the most part I was like, most of this is just fine. And then there's moments where I'm like, this feels weird.
yeah, where like Jasmine's whole thing is more about I want to be the Sultan now, and it's like, okay.
Well, we knew you wanted to be a sultan.
I mean, it's more like because the whole thing with Jasmine in the original is that she doesn't want to get married off, right?
Yeah.
She doesn't care about that stuff. She doesn't like that people, specifically men, her father Jafar and all these people are just trying to decide her fate. And it's like, no, I want to be me.
I want to fall in love with the person I fall in love with.
No arranged marriage bullshit here. I just don't want any of that.
Yeah.
And then I guess Disney to be more feminist because
Which is, let's just say this is not the whole point of
this is not the whole point of the thing. It's more of just how when you look, because a lot of the critiques of the old Disney films is that like it are from feminists being like, this isn't feminist enough or whatever,
Or people who think that it's not feminist enough.
yeah, and it's just sort of like, because that's sort of the critique. It's like, these are films featuring girls, and
And
Disney makes money off of like little girls, and it's like,
nostalgia.
it's nostalgia, right?
Yeah, that's what you guys want. And it's like not that like we're saying this is all bad or anything, but it's just more like kind of like with just the whole idea of nostalgia. It feels very corporate.
Yeah, like it's not. They're not doing these things to be like, actually trying to do something different. It's more like, let's just add one change so that people can see that it's different, and then we can make more money.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that's what it is for Disney.
Yeah. And obviously, it's hard not to blame Disney because they have the rights to everything that is our nostalgia. like Aladdin and all that stuff you just mentioned. Heck, Star Wars nowadays.
I mean, yeah, they do own Star Wars, yeah.
And because the movies, specifically movie-wise, and you can kind of argue some of the TV shows and the comics, but they rely heavily on, specifically the movies, on nostalgia. Especially that first movie.
Yeah, The Force Awakens, yes. Which is, I mean, obviously the common critique is it's just A New Hope again. Mm-hmm. And the Rebels are now the Resistance.
The Empire is now the
First Order.
Yeah.
This and that. All that sort of jazz.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, it is kind of... I think half of the reasons why like the sequel trilogy has that this weird nostalgia stuff going on is just simply because at the time of when it came out, it was still pretty on brand to just dunk on the prequels because it's like the prequels suck. We want things to be like the old trilogy, and then JJ was like, exactly, that's why I'm giving you Force Awakens. It's like, no, this is too much like the old one. This is just a remake.
Yeah, no, like a lot of people say, like, man, they had no plans. I mean, of course they didn't have any plans, but but they kept going as is with all that story and like all the the shit bashing that we gave the not only the prequels but also as the sequels were coming along, kind of like formed that sort of the way that sequel trilogy came out to be.
Yeah. It does feel like, especially with the Last Skywalker, it feels like
Last Jedi. Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker. My bad. Yeah.
Listen, they're all the same to me.
Yeah, I guess. It was the Rise of Skywalker definitely leans into like trying to correct everything that the fans thought were wrong about the last two films, specifically The Last Jedi, because a lot of people were like, The Last Jedi just screwed up all of the fucking plot threads of the first movie.
And ruined every character.
So where do we go now? And it's like JJ comes back and, it's like, don't worry, guys. Papa JJ's here. I'm going to fix everything. And then he didn't.
Because Papa JJ ain't that good of a papa.
No. He was too fueled on the mystery box highs. Like, I swear, I feel like with J.J. Abrams and mystery boxes, his whole friggin' philosophy about that, I think he just gets high off of that.
Jesus, okay.
Well, I'm just saying. Like,
you're just saying, man. You're just saying.
Yeah, it just seems...
It's not like J.J. Abrams is going to listen to this.
Yeah. But yeah, it's... Then he was like, no, it turns out that Rey's a Palpatine, and...
Which, like, I remember when that movie came out, Force Awakens, it was like, man, there's a lot of conversations about who could she be related to, and I'm like, it has to be like a Kenobi, because like I like the idea that that there's a tie between those families, the Skywalkers and the Kenobis. Like it all started with their grandfathers. But anyways, and to continue on to the fact of the nostalgia, is just that movie is just so nostalgia made. The original one, I mean the Force Awakens, but and what I argue oftentimes that it's kind of like a fine balance of nostalgia, because like it tells its own story. You just follow certain plot beats that just feel very reminiscent of A New Hope, and that's not entirely a bad thing, because it's not like, oh hey, remember this, or hey, remember that. It's more like, oh yeah, remember this, okay, yeah, good, we're just good thing you remember that, because we're using that for a reason. And like, yeah, and a lot of it is because Star Wars is basically the idea of the hero's journey. So of course you're going to be having like sort of similar plot threads. You lost Obi-Wan and you lost Han, and honestly, if you were surprised that Han was going to die, I don't know what to tell you, because Harrison Ford really hated making those movies.
I mean, I'm pretty sure he was legit like, I'm only coming back if you kill me. Oh, that's all. Yeah, Harrison Ford wanted Han to die in Empire Strikes Back. That's why the whole carbonite thing is left sort of vague as to, will he live? Will he die? That sort of thing. So that way, if Harrison Ford decided, I don't come back, whatever, I don't care. But yeah, it's...
But like I say this, the nostalgia thing is probably one of the things that movie's kind of like always been critical of, or being criticized of, because like, man, you just relied too much on it. Even in like, as much as it tried to subvert our expectations in The Last Jedi, man, it was just basically, it felt like Empire Strikes Back at the time.
I mean, yeah, considering the First Order in the movie is definitely sort of like, yeah, they're put in a very similar situation as Empire Strikes Back. Empire's on the offensive, wrecking the rebels, and in Last Jedi, it's the First Order just pounding down and doing everything it can to crush the resistance and stuff. Yeah, it's you know, they are similar tones, and I know that there is like a debate of like in people. I remember at the time people were like, maybe in like 20 years or 10 years down the line, people are gonna be like, oh yeah, the Last Jedi was good because it's our Empire Strikes Back, because you know, the original Empire Strikes Back was panned or whatever, and it's like, yeah, but I think there's a difference because I feel like the idea of Empire Strikes Back sort of grew over time, and it wasn't. It didn't take as long for people to be like, "No, this is a good movie," you know.
Mm-hmm.
And with Last Jedi, it's like I feel like still to this day there are some segments of the internet that are just like, "Fuck the Last Jedi," and other segments be like, "No, the Last Jedi is like the greatest of the sequels," and I think a majority of people are just like, it was
something.
It was all right, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Could have been better.
Could have been way better.
Yeah.
I mean, like it's one of those things where, and let's move on to like more positive outlooks of nostalgia use, because like I don't want people to think just because it's nostalgic it's a bad. Like, no, there's movies that use nostalgia in like a really good way, and in our Matrix review we talked about, you know, Creed and Planet of the Apes, and like I'm one to say the first Creed is probably one of my favorite Rocky movies. It's like easily somewhere between 1 and 2, and that's because one, it's its own original story, but once you look at the beats of the movie, it's basically Rocky 1.
I mean, yeah, it even has Rocky 1's ending and everything, where Rocky doesn't win, and in similar fashion, Adonis doesn't win, but he gets the respect of his opponent. You know, like he showed that he could go the distance, right?
That is, it wasn't just a fluke.
Yeah, like this guy is legit, right?
And like just like in the movie, man, he jumps quick into pro fights. It was like just kind of like that, because he had some like, you know, small time fights. He had one big, you know, kind of professional fight, and then he was like, "All right, pay-per-view moment, let's go." And you're like, "Wait, what?"
I mean, that's just
the logic of film.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. You can't expect people to understand the logics of the
commitment.
I wouldn't say commitment, but more sort of the not statistics. The behind the scenes of what goes into professional boxing and stuff,
you know,
and rising through the ranks and stuff. No one cares to watch that. You want to see the big fights and be done with it.
Yeah, you do.
This is why boxing, you know, is on the downward trend.
All right. No, but like the thing I've always, you know, really liked about Creed is that, one, it's nostalgic as hell, but it's in a good way where like you remember why you loved the first Rocky movie, being told from a different perspective with a different kind of outlook on that life. Like, take the ending of Creed, right? In the ending at the end of the movie, Adonis and Rocky are climbing up the Philadelphia the steps in Philadelphia. You know, the iconic steps, the one that we all know. Like Rocky, whenever he's running, and he goes up to those steps and he's like, "Yes," you know, because it was like a form of like of triumph. Like, I can go the distance, I made it, and all that good stuff. Here, it's different. It means it's still that, but it's told in a totally different meaning. It's more like, you know, them being able to they went the distance. Rocky's gonna beat cancer and something else, you know, because like it's Rocky. Rocky's struggling to get up, but he makes it up, and he's like, you know, he gives that line like, "What do you see? Like good things, man. Like, yep, it's always gonna be good things." You know, this is that sort of touching moment, and it still tells you the same idea that it did in the original Rocky movie, but from a totally different viewpoint. And it's like you remember why you love the Rocky movies. Heck, when you first saw Rocky, because you saw it at a different time than I did, Creed. And the moment where they start playing the Rocky theme, I'm singing a long song today. You were like,
yeah,
all right, Adonis, let's go. I got you. I'm rooting for you now.
Yeah, because it happens like right at the end of the fight, right? You know.
Yeah, they never use the score at all.
Yeah, you know, they just play that one bit of the music, you know, of the Rocky theme, and it's just like, let's go.
Yeah, because it's like now you're with this guy. It means something, and like that's why I'm saying like the use of nostalgia isn't really that bad. It's just how you use it, and if you use it I guess he's being used by someone who loves that series and understands what it means, and can give you like a totally different perspective of that story.
Yeah.
Because that's what like Ryan Coogler was about. Like he's like Rocky is one of my favorite movies, and like I always wanted to do this kind of story, and it's a really good story. And then we also talked about the Planet of the Apes movies. It was it Rise,
Dawn, and
was it War? No.
Yeah, no, it was War.
War for I'm gonna check it.
No, because like his battle was from the original series.
The original series, yeah. Yeah, but because like I'm a big, I wouldn't say the biggest, but I really enjoy the Planet of the Apes films. I remember catching them one time on whatever like channel they were on. They were showing all of them, and I had free time. I was like, all right, I'm gonna sit down and watch all of them. And I'm like, wow, these movies are awesome and stuff. And so I kind of like really, fell in love with them. Yeah, it was War. And watching I remember watching the first one. I was like, man, there's like so many Easter eggs and references, but this is a totally, not new story because like there is a, Caesar. The idea of like a character like Caesar isn't new to the series. There was another Caesar, from the original movies, that was in let's see, there was the original Planet of the Apes, Beneath the Planet of the Apes, Conquest, or was it Battle? I can't remember. Because there was another one. But I'll let you take over while I look that up.
I mean, yeah, it's I do agree with the Planet of the Apes movie. They do like there essentially are kind of like it's like semi a reboot, but also semi remakes of like those specifically later generations of the Planet of the Apes movies because they focus more on like how humanity fell and the apes were able to rise and stuff like that. And it sort of takes that trend, like like because like there probably won't ever be like I guess any future movies with the rise of the Planet of the Apes series.
Yeah,
because it was more focused on like
how we got there.
Yeah, how we got there essentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, they definitely do take a lot of notes and various other things from the older movies.
So Rise of the Planet of the Apes is a mix of escape and conquest of Planet of the Apes. I just had to make sure I was right. So like I'll let you finish up before I get it.
But yeah, it's no, I mean yeah, I agree. That series of Planet of the Apes films definitely, I feel like they use nostalgia and stuff for a bit for like I think the first movie, and I think by the third movie it is kind of its own thing. For its own, like it stands on its own. Like you could just like which I think is interesting,
Yeah, it's like it's a part of the universe. It's not. It's its own little thing. And don't get me wrong. I think the interest in the Planet of the Apes movies was always there. Heck, Tim Burton made his own Planet of the Apes movies, and it was just like.
I mean, those were just a straight up remake of the first one,
without really doing much with those movies, really.
Yeah, and it definitely focused more on like trying to out twist the first one.
Yeah.
Which, boy, that's just...
Oh, God. Talk about nostalgia. Remember that ending for that Tim Burton's one?
I mean, yeah, like I said, it wanted to outdo the original ending of the first Planet of the Apes movie, which...
Go for it.
I'm not gonna... Spoiler, I guess, for a movie that came out in the 60s. If you haven't seen it, I mean, you probably know what it is, even if you haven't seen it. It's straight up... Just it turns out the Planet of the Apes, because it's a bunch of astronauts that go crash land on a planet ruled by apes or whatever, And it turns out, end of the movie, it was Earth all along. It's a destroyed Statue of Liberty, and Charlton Heston's like, "You maniacs! You blew it up! Damn you!
God damn you all to hell!"
Yeah, and Tim Burton's remake wanted to, I guess, outdo the original, and it's once again, I mean, it's a spoiler for a movie that came out in 2001, but I mean, I don't think anyone's gonna care to watch it. No.
You got those that trilogy over there. It's really good.
Yeah, where it's Mark Wahlberg. He comes back to Earth, but it turns out it's still ruled by apes, and the Lincoln Memorial statue has an ape face on it, and you're just like, what?
And I think it's implied it was the bad ape.
It was the bad ape from earlier. And it's like, what? Like, what's
like the humans are gone. It's all apes now. Apes drive cars, which apparently in the original book they did. But that was always the weird. Like it's like that was nostalgia bait, but like trying to outdo the nostalgia.
Yeah. It's just it's just super weird.
It's super weird.
It's more there just to like try to like there's
a lot of like questions to be had. Like, wait, so how did apes rise and people word out? How did the people become slaves? Wait, so the little monkey that they sent to be the test pilot, that's their Jesus, I guess. You barely remember that movie, do you?
Yeah, I barely remember this movie.
I was like, I'm looking at you like, dude, you know what I'm talking about, right? And you're like, no.
No, I don't. No,
because I remember that movie well.
Yeah.
Planet of the Apes guy right here. No, but like, because in the original movie, it's like it's pretty obvious, especially when Charles Heston says, "You maniacs, you blew it up. Goddamn you out of hell."
And then it cuts to, it's the Statue of Liberty. It's like, oh.
It's like,
it was Earth all along.
Well, not just that. It's like, oh, we blew it. Nuclear war.
Yeah, this is a world after nuclear, mutual destruction. Everything goes to shit, and the apes take our place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, oh, that's cool. And here it's like, okay, but wait though.
There's a lot of questions because it feels like because of the implied ending, it feels like humanity has, or rather the apes have taken the same course as humanity at a certain point, including all of history. Because I mean, to get to the Lincoln Memorial, I mean, there's a lot of various events that have to be similar, right? Or unless for some strange reason the apes and humans decided that making a statue or whatever similar to the Lincoln Memorial was just, I don't know, just somehow, like, I guess we're both unoriginal. We have the same ideas. What's going on? What?
See, if it was like an alternate universe, I'm like, okay, that's cool. That's sure, whatever.
Yeah.
But like this is like, oh wait, hold up, what? But well, in the movies, it's more like the idea of like genetics and a lot of other stuff going around, and like just the spread of disease is what caused the end of humanity. While there's still some stragglers, it's obvious that they're not going to survive because this disease is also what made the apes more intelligent, more stronger, more all that stuff.
Yeah,
that's why throughout the movies you see them getting smarter and smarter, being able to communicate.
Yeah.
So that's like, oh, this is really cool. And I think it's one of those things where, why I say like the use of nostalgia isn't a terrible thing. It's like, how can you, one, show it in a different light, but also, expand on what has already been made.
Mm-hmm.
And, whether or not you choose to believe that it was nuclear warfare that caused the end of humanity, or it was just rapidly spreading disease that killed all humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Whichever one, both seem plausible, especially nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, both of those are still very prevalent threats in human society, you know. So, although granted, the apes rising to replace us, it's probably going to take a couple million years.
Yeah, I mean, who knows how long that Statue of Liberty was there? It's on an island, but that's in the movie. It's off in the short coast of the shore.
Yeah, it probably did take a while.
Yeah, it did take a while. But like, okay, so I knew we were gonna have to talk about this again, but the use of nostalgia nowadays is still not as prevalent, or like not as um bashing your head over it, but it's more like it's there, especially with returning films, because like we've been getting a lot of like continuation films recently. Obviously the Matrix is one, Bill and Ted. I want to say there's another one, but I just can't think of it off the top of my head.
Space Jam.
Space Jam. Yeah, Joe, you hated that.
Yeah.
Yes, because like those are the ones that are like unapologetic. Like, yeah, we're using your nostalgia, or sometimes, or like we may or may not use nostalgia. Who knows? But but when you're like, but using Space Jam for a quick second, as much as I found it to be a fun bad film, I'm not gonna deny they use nostalgia like a motherfucker in so many ways, more than in just Space Jam itself.
I mean, the whole movie's just a corporate. It's just
say it.
corporate shellacking. I don't know what word to describe it, but it just feels like one big marketing tool. Just like, hey, look at all the shit Warner Brothers owns. Look, we're interesting. We're Warner Brothers. Look at all the stuff we own.
We have Casablanca. Which, do they have it on HBO Max?
I would only assume they would. It would just, I don't know. It just makes sense. That's just so weird to me. That's what they did in that movie. But I'll never understand Warner Brothers executives and their whole ethos of making films.
No, I don't either. But even so, like, there's just so many movies that it's just that, especially going on right now. Like I said, with especially with bigger companies like Warner Bros. And Disney, they are really want to use the nostalgia. Like, I don't know if this is true or not, but I saw an article. I didn't get a chance to read it, but it's like they're gonna do a live action Snow White movie, but it's gonna be gender bent.
I mean, who's making this?
Disney.
Are the dwarves gender bent as well? Because I feel like that might lead in some interesting questions here.
I don't know.
Because if the dwarves aren't gender bent, but Snow White is, then male Snow White is just gonna be hanging out with a bunch of dude bro dwarves. It's gonna be it's gonna be awesome, right? He's not gonna care about anything. It's like, yeah, we're just a bunch of dudes mining in a mine, you know.
Nothing creepy about this at all.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it's way more creepier when it's an actual female Snow White with a bunch of dwarves. If you really want to go down that
that's
route.
If you really want to go down that route.
Yeah.
Which no one does.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, Disney. I don't know. It's definitely for like, I don't know. It's weird because I mean, they remade Cinderella and they didn't. And I think people found that movie to be pretty alright because they did at least some changes that made some sense, i.e., make Cinderella and the prince meet more than once and actually have them develop a relationship before they get married and whatever. Which is like, fair enough. That's actually a decent change. Good on you, Disney. Or Maleficent.
Disney cast Mel lead in live action Snow White, but he's not playing the prince.
So that's just the rumor. It's rumor that is he the huntsman?
Nope.
Because that's the only male. Is he one of the dwarves? Oh my god, is one of the dwarves going to be a hot dwarf? And then it's going to create a love triangle?
Okay, so I misread. He is a male lead, but he's not a prince. There is a princess and there is an evil queen. By the way, evil queen is Gal Gadot.
There's going to be a certain population that would agree with that statement. And it's not the population you're thinking in your brain. It's a I'm not gonna make a joke about it because it might get a little political here.
Okay, let's not do that.
But yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. It's interesting what Disney is willing to do to try to like make different versions of stuff. If anything, I feel the sad thing about Disney with their live action remakes, it's like they have opportunities to take old animated films that either did not work or could actually, or they
This
have
could be done in live action.
done in live action and have some actual decent improvements, i.e., the Black Cauldron.
Oh, holy shit, dude! That would be like an awesome, like, sort of a dark fantasy kind of movie.
Or the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Oh my god, but I love that movie.
Yeah, but I mean, it has its issues.
It does.
Gargoyles,
Yeah, just take out the gargoyles and you're fine.
And whiplash tones. I mean, when
dude, imagine Atlantis live action though.
Yes, exactly. Atlantis live action, Treasure Planet live action. There's like so many interesting films you could do, but then it's like, let's just remake The Lion King, but with CGI animals that look photorealistic. And it's like, Disney, why do you do this? I know why you do this, but I ain't watching this.
Trying to get my nostalgia, man. But I know. I know the game.
No, I know the game, especially because they ruined Be Prepared and made it like some weird slam poetry session. It's like, what are you doing, Disney? That's like your villain song. You can't ruin your villain song like that. Get out of here, Disney. Get out of here with that nonsense. Absolute nonsense. But yeah, that's sort of the weird thing with nostalgia sometimes. It's sort of like, for certain audience members, it's like, if you're willing to play them in nostalgia and you're not gonna deliver on it, then I'm just gonna hate you.
Or heck, like, just like I said, nostalgia isn't terrible.
No, it's not.
No, because you remember, like, two episodes ago, we talked about, Spider-Man. And while we didn't go into spoiler on that one, we did mention it a little bit later on. They use nostalgia like a motherfucker in a great ass way. Like, holy shit! Like, hey, remember the Green Goblin? Remember Doc Ock? Remember Electro? And Sandman, and the Lizard, and how they all know they're from, like, it's not only was it a celebration of the live action movies, but like, it's done in a way where it's so good. Because, like, just the interactions between these older people who and remember from the past, but also, like, acknowledging it and having fun with it. Like, how many times have they cracked jokes about stuff from last movies? With, like, heck, Osborn was, like we said it before, Osborn, I'm something of a scientist myself. I'm like, oh my god, you know the meme. And you know how funny that is now. And not only that, if you grew up with that first movie, you're like, kind of shit.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, the best scene is, and really using the use of nostalgia in the best way, we talked about it before, the interaction between all three Spider-Man. Because that was, like, not only is that, like, a great scene to have, but if you're someone who grew up watching all these Spider-Man movies, and knowing how much those moments affected them, and seeing these three characters kind of come together because of that, it's something kind of magical. And I don't know, you want to add to that or?
I think you sort of summed it up pretty well. Nostalgia is more of a marketing tool than like a filmmaking tool, because you don't go into a film and being like, I want to put some nostalgia in here, right? It oftentimes, it's done for like marketing purposes, or like trying to get a certain reaction out of an audience, because that's just how nostalgia works. It's just something that's inside our brains that we reminisce about stuff, and movies will sometimes certain films or whatever will try to like tickle that fancy. I don't know a better way of saying it, but yeah. But sometimes it can be used sparingly and well, and like actually sort of make you truly, nostalgic. Other times, it's a bit too blatant, and over the top, and you're just sort of like, I know what you're trying to play at, and it's not gonna work, right? And I guess if a film is wanting to do something like that, it has to like sort of balance itself out. It can't just be nothing but nostalgia pandering and stuff. Like it has to be a rhyme and a reason for it. And I mean, yeah, you sort of sum it up perfectly. At least with No Way Home, like there's a rhyme and a reason for all the stuff they do with that movie. And then for certain things, like certain live action Disney movies, it's sort of like they just do it because they know it's gonna make money.
Heck, like even we're going back to Matrix, but like that has some nostalgia moments throughout, and for us it was very distracting and very annoying to an extent. But some argue there's some deep meaning between the writing, and sure, like I said, that's fine. I'm glad people were to find it, but for us it was different. Part of it for us that made it not really like it was just the use of nostalgia, because it didn't feel right. And I don't know if that was what the intention was, but it still made me kind of sour. And there's movies that can do it right, like we said. Creed is one of the best examples of that. Planet of the Apes, Spider-Man, and other things that know how to use nostalgia in a real way, and we know it's not gonna stop.
No, because it's a selling point trend. I mean, where like I said earlier, people were nostalgic for the 80s. I mean, Stranger Things, that hits 80s nostalgia super huge.
Yeah.
And now we're starting to get stuff for like 90s kids. I mean, look at how many freaking like specials has Nickelodeon released in the last couple of years that are like targeting 90s nostalgia. They actually did that Hey Arnold movie. There was a Rocko's Modern Life special.
There was?
Yeah, there was.
Holy shit, I missed that.
Yeah. And obviously a new Rugrats show coming out on Paramount Plus. It's like, like Nickelodeon, like there's like a huge sort of this big stuff for the 90s kids coming in hot soon. All right, and we're just seeing I think the beginning of it.
I know you don't watch Stranger Things.
I don't
blame you. It's not your cup of tea.
No, it's not.
But I do. And as much as the nostalgia is like really cool, there are times where like, okay, pull back on that nostalgia. It's getting really annoying now, because it was in this recent season that passed. They literally had an argument about New Coke.
And that's the thing that happened in the 80s. Remember the 80s, guys? I mean, and I think, to be fair, there probably was stuff like that for like older generations. Like people were probably nostalgic for the 50s back in whatever year, and so on forth. And it's good. Yeah, it's gonna keep on happening. Like hell, probably in 20 years down the line, there's gonna be a bunch of people that are gonna be like nostalgic for the 2010s, and we're gonna get a bunch of revivals of stuff that came out in the 2010s and stuff.
And we're gonna be like, was that a thing back in the day? I guess it was.
Yeah.
Like, and even now, sometimes it doesn't even matter if it was like more than 20 or 30 years ago. Heck, even 10 years ago. Remember all that Avatar stuff? That's coming back.
I mean, yeah, like, I think that's sort of just what Nickelodeon is doing as well. It's just that they're looking at all the stuff they have, and it's like, people are nostalgic for this, therefore we must capitalize and make money.
When Avatar came out on Netflix, the level of nostalgia I saw people coming into, I was like, oh my god, how did we not know? I'm like, it was there, you guys didn't notice it, and now you're feeling more nostalgic about it.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, the original series came out, 2007, right?
2007.
Yeah.
I remember those days. We were watching it.
Yeah, I remember watching it. That was fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a trend that probably will never stop. It's probably a trend that's happened since probably the dawn of commercialization. Because companies would like to market on like, remember this, it's back kind of thing. So I mean, it's just
I,
that.
I think it's just natural for someone for a lot of people to go back and remember the good old days. It's just natural.
Yeah, because you sort of like view the past and with rose tinted goggles, but sadly, sometimes like there's kind of dumb stuff in the past. I mean, I'm trying to think of something. I mean, there's probably a lot of media that you remember seeing as a kid that's probably like bad, and you're like, wait, that was a thing? I don't remember that at all.
Heck, if you want to be like honest, remember all the weird like fashion trends and all that shit. I guess. Yeah, like fashion trends, they come and go, and sometimes we'll be like, "Hey, remember parachute pants? How dumb they were."
I mean, yeah, I guess that's the same thing with movies too, right?
Yeah.
Like, it was all westerns back in the days, like in the 40s and 50s and 60s and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, that sort of died down. And yeah, sure, we get some western movies every now and again. I mean, there was that remake of Magnificent Seven, which was pretty all right, all things considered. Uh, but yeah, it does seem like that's probably just gonna be like a thing that's gonna happen
Mm-hmm.
eventually. You know, but like we'll probably see a lot of trends in terms of films die down or whatever. But one trend that probably won't ever die down is just nostalgia, because at the end of the day, that is just something. I guess it's pretty human to be nostalgic for stuff.
Heck, you just reminded me of something. They're making a '90s show. That '90s show.
Oh right, yeah, they are like a sequel to that '70s show
Yeah.
called yeah. And sure, you could argue that '70s show was kind of like being used for nostalgia for people that grew up in the '70s.
Yeah. I mean, it came out like in the '90s.
Yeah, so
The time frame would make sense.
yeah. So that is it is an interesting thing to look at when all things considered. So yeah, I mean, anything else you want to talk about or?
No, I think that's about it. I think we're done. Because I got nothing else to like add on aside from the fact that nostalgia in itself is not terrible. It just depends on how it's used. There's a sort of a natural and like a great way and like an emotional way to use it, like we mentioned before, and just some corporate ass way to do it, and it makes it feel kind of hollowness and empty.
Yeah, and it's often the latter that gets the most attention because clearly you remember that one more because it's someone that's clearly trying to use your nostalgia.
And not in a good way.
Yeah.
Anyways, guys, that was the end of the episode. I'm glad to talk about this whole thing. It's one thing that we knew we were gonna have to talk about one day, and I'm just glad we did. Because it's gonna be a thing. It's gonna be a thing in the next coming years, and like, just gonna have to accept it and just hope that someone with some goddamn sense knows how to use it. But anyways, it's been me, your boy Eli, and Joy. If you enjoy the show, be sure to follow us on all social medias at Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at the Geek Centurions. We're most active on our Instagram, where we just reached 100 followers. Thank you, Lord. And yeah, if you on that Instagram, you can find a link tree to all the podcasts that we're officially part of, like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, all that good stuff. And you will also find a link to our YouTube channel, where all you audio listeners out there can finally put a face to the voice and see how we're doing. If you're on the YouTube, please like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Also, we have Patreons for you guys to support us anyway. It's really just there for us to know that you guys support us in any form of way. Like I said, it's fine. And yeah, it's been me. Like I said, Eli, enjoy.
So
All right, guys, have a good one. It's been your boy. Have a good one. Peace.